Info 7 welcomes you to a new video in which we provide you with a list of the 46 presidents of the United States of America in terms of the date of their first entry, yet in a chronological order. George Washington, a famous historical figure who was the first president of the United States of America after leading the Continental Army in a victory for independence. John Adams. He became the vice president to George Washington before going on to become the second president of the United States. Thomas Jefferson. He was the third president of the USA and served for 2 terms. He was in charge of the purchase of Louisiana and American Western expansion. James Madison. Named as the father of the Constitution, James Madison was the 4th president of the United States. James Monroe. American statesman, lawyer, and diplomat, he was the 5th president of the United States and the last president of Virginia dynasty. John Quincy Adams. He was the 6th president of the United States, the son of John Adams, who himself served as president. Andrew Jackson. He was known as Old Hickory for his strength of character, yet regarded as a great advocate of democracy who kept America united during difficult times. Martin Van Buren. He was the 8th President of the United States after serving as the 8th President and the 10th Secretary of State, both under President Andrew Jackson. William Henry Harrison. He was the 9th President of the United States. He was sworn in on 4th March on the steps of the Capitol as tradition dictates. John Taylor. He took office when his predecessor died after only 1 month in office. He left his mark on the United States with his obstinacy. James Polk. He was known as the Dark Horse. He served as president during a period of manifest destiny, overseeing the Mexican War and the entry of Texas as a state. Zachary Taylor. Winner of Santa Ana in Buena Vista. He was elected President of the United States in 1848. Although he was only president for a short time, he was appreciated and respected. Millard Fillmore. Vice President of Zachary Taylor, he served for 3 years of discreet presidency, which will not succeed in consolidating the fragile compromise found by his predecessor on the issue of slavery. Franklin Pierce. He was the president in charge of a further enlargement of the United States to the south and north. It will mainly involve the creation of Nebraska and Kansas in the west. James Buchanan. The 15th president of the United States, James Buchanan, inherited a deeply divided nation when he took office in 1857. He was a supporter of the right of each state to decide on its internal policy. Abraham Lincoln. Today, Abraham Lincoln is remembered as a visionary leader, a gifted orator, and one of America's greatest presidents. In his day, however, he faced harsh criticism for his handling of the Civil War and his expansion of executive power. Andrew Johnson. The only senator from the South who did not secede from his slave-trading neighbors before the war. Andrew Johnson will remain faithful to Abraham Lincoln and will replace him after his assassination. Ulysses Grant. Great architect of the victory against the Confederates during the Civil War, he was the commander of the Northern armies. He was elected president in 1869 for a term of 4 years. Rutherford Hayes. Elected at the end of the most fraudulent elections in the history of the United States, Hayes completed the reunification by integrating Southern Democrats into his government. James Garfield. He is the shortest-term U.S. president. The Republican president was indeed seriously wounded by bullets 6 months and 15 days after his inauguration. Chester Arthur. Elected to the White House in 1881, he will be a great reformer of the public service. The fight against corruption will also be to his credit at the end of his term. Grover Cleveland. Cleveland is the first Democratic candidate to be elected since the Civil War. against favoritism, grants to associations, and against lobbying. He will veto more than 400 laws during his first term. Benjamin Harrison. Under the presidency of Benjamin Harrison, 6 new states will be admitted into the Union. Nevertheless, he is often presented as the one who indirectly led to the economic crisis of 1893. William McKinley. William McKinley pulls the United States out of the crisis thanks to a vast monetary reform and an increase in tariffs and protectionism. Theodore Roosevelt. A great scientist, he was at the origin of a policy of saving natural resources, protecting the environment, and creating protected areas. William Howard Taft. He tried to consolidate American domination through dollar policy and foreign trade. He is also the first president to face feminist demands in the United States. Woodrow Wilson. Wilson is at the origin of several social reforms in the United States, as well as the return of military service which had disappeared since the Civil War. Warren Harding. He is known to have removed some progressive reforms from his predecessors. Protectionist and anti-immigration, he very quickly limits the access of the peoples of Southern and Central Europe to the USA. Calvin Coolidge. The 13th President of the United States led the nation through most of the Roaring Twenties, a decade of dynamic social and cultural change, materialism, and excess. Herbert Hoover. He took office in 1929, the year of the American economy plunged into the Great Depression. While the policies of his predecessors undoubtedly contributed to the crisis, which lasted more than a decade for Americans, Hoover bore much of the blame. Franklin Roosevelt. He was elected in 1933 on the promise of an economic New Deal, a vast Keynesian program to get the United States out of the economic crisis. Harry Truman. A pivotal figure between World War II and the Cold War. Considered one of the main builders of the UN, he is the first American president to take the side of black civil rights. Dwight Eisenhower. Commander-in-Chief of the Allied Forces in 1945, General Eisenhower, as a president, he will ensure the ceasefire in Korea, launch the space conquest, and develop nuclear weapons in the midst of the Cold War. John Kennedy took office at the age of 43. He is the youngest elected president of the United States. A man of peace, he was also the first to consider a withdrawal from Vietnam and to ban nuclear tests. Lyndon Johnson succeeded John Kennedy in 1963 before being himself widely elected in 1964. He almost immediately bolstered the war efforts in Vietnam. Richard Nixon. Nixon launched in 1969 a gradual disengagement of the American army bogged down in Vietnam. He was forced to resign after the famous Watergate affair. Gerald Ford. Our long national nightmare is over. It is with these words that Gerald Ford hopes to turn the page on Watergate upon his inauguration. Since outside the White House, the country was hit hard by the oil shock and affected by inflation that Ford will try somehow to control. Jimmy Carter. As the 38th President of the United States, Jimmy Carter has fought to meet today's challenges: the major energy crisis, high inflation, and unemployment. Ronald Reagan. A former actor, he will specially make himself known in the White House as a great liberal, a supporter of deregulation and massive tax cuts. He will be at the origin of a new socio-economic doctrine that is still alive in the West today. George Herbert Walker Bush. Continuator of the policy of Ronald Reagan, of which he was the vice president, he is above all the man of the first Gulf War in 1991. Bill Clinton. Abroad, Bill Clinton was the instigator of the Oslo Accords between Israelis and Palestinians in 1993. Inside, it's Bill Clinton's laid-back style, but also his wife Hillary's involvement in the decisions that mark people's minds. George Bush. Bush was confronted from his first year in office with one of the major events of the beginning of the 21st century, the attacks of September 11, which saw the Twin Towers collapse. His Monday will also be marked by the military intervention in Iraq. Barack Obama. Barack Obama is the first African American to hold the post, a landmark event that partly fulfills the dream of American black civil rights activist Martin Luther King. His presidency comes in a context of war in Iraq, war in Afghanistan, crisis in the Middle East, a major economic recession, and the global financial and economic crisis. Donald Trump. Trump is the 45th President of the United States. The victory of the candidate of the Republican Party was a huge surprise to his country, but also to the entire globe. Since Trump's election, the world has changed. The arrival at the head of the United States of this real estate magnate has altered global balances and confirmed the change in international relations to such an extent that it could be irreversible. The Trump presidency is often said atypical and was marked by criticism of many international institutions. In many ways, it clearly marks a turning point in history, yet his policy had major effects on an international scale. And last but not least,
I'm announcing my candidacy for President of the United States.
Big moment here for Vice President Joe Biden.
Joe Biden officially announcing he's in.
It's a moment for someone who can bring us together. It's a moment for Joe Biden.
There's not a single thing we cannot do if we do it together.
I'm running as a proud Democrat, but I will govern as an American president.
the current President of the United States of America, Joe Biden. The former Vice President and the current President of the United States represent a major indication of hope and progress for all Americans. Joe Biden has shown himself in a revolutionary way. Throughout his campaign, he never stopped talking about unity and getting rid of repeated formulas and making the promise to be a president who unites and not who divides, or even the invitation to peace by urging his fellow citizens to not to treat their opponents as enemies. Here are the main points of Joe Biden's program. Massive investment to stop the COVID-19.
The plan. This is the plan. You can go online and get it.
Increasing taxes for the wealthy, financing of health and pension system on the high incomes, increase the tax rate on corporate profits, reinforcement of social assistance to finance studies, devotion of $2,000 billion to the fight against global warming. All these elements indicate that Biden has a strong, promising program that, if followed and executed efficiently, will lead not only America but the world into an all-inclusive, prosperous future. This list has come to an end. We hope you found this list informative and comprehensive. See you in the next video with a more intriguing content on Info 7 channel.